Hey guys, this is Professor Tiffany Martin, and we are working on Chapter 16 in Medical Microbiology, and Chapter 16 is about the adaptive immunity. We just did Chapter 15, which was the innate immunity, which we defined as non-specific, but now we are moving into the specific forms of immunity. This is what some people talk about being acquired immunity. This is when we are targeting specific pathogens. So we are still reviewing our overall concept map here, and we had done all of innate immunity, which included first line and second line of defenses. First line were the physical barriers. Second line is if it passes the physical barriers and gets inside our body. What are some of our body's responses then? All of that we did, cells, chemicals, interferon, complement, fever, inflammation, all of that will occur no matter what type of foreign invaders we get. Anything that's foreign can trigger the innate immunity. But because of that, we want to make sure, because of that, it's kind of a weaker defense. We're trying to defend ourselves, but we don't want to pull out like the big guns until we're really sure that this is something that's bad for us. Because again, we come in contact with lots of microorganisms, and plenty are not bad and some of them are good. So we don't want to pull out the big guns until we're sure that it's something that we need to really protect ourselves from. So that's why the innate immunity is involved. This happens kind of weak, but it can happen immediately. So we can start protecting ourselves. Okay, there's going to be some time before we engage the adaptive immunity. That can take 24 to 48 hours. It is much more specific. It is much more targeted. It's going to involve T cells, B cells, those antibodies with that. But before we do that, we want to make absolutely sure that it's worth doing that. So you can kind of think about it again. All of this is kind of a defense strategy, and so it's kind of easy to kind of compare it if you're scared and you want to defend yourself. If you hear a noise outside, you think you might be threatened, you're going to take some precautions. Even if you don't know if it's bad or not, you're going to take some immediate precautions. You're going to maybe flip on an outdoor light. You're going to, hide in a back room, get the kids away, or, you're going to make some things you can do immediately to protect yourselves. You may get on the phone and call 911 if you're that worried about it, but you don't know for sure that this is a burglar trying to get into your house. So you don't want to like pull out your gun and just start firing until you know you have a target and you know that your life isn't threatened, right? So the adaptive immune response would be like your physical, your guns, just something that's going to give a big impact, and you don't want to do that until you are absolutely sure that you are in danger, that you have a target to aim for, and you are absolutely in danger. So innate immune response, weaker response, they can happen immediately. Things you can do to protect yourself immediately: inflammation, fever, dendritic cells, phagocytes. Remember, they're going to gobble it up and get rid of it, but then they're going to save a little piece and they're going to take it to the adaptive immune system. You're going to find out, is this something that I need to be concerned about? So that all happens to the innate immunity. Now we are moving to the big guns. We are moving to our third line of defense, which is a very strong immune response. It's very targeted, specific against what type of threat our body is finding itself against. Could be a burglar, but it could be something else. It could be another type of threat, and we need to respond accordingly, whatever's appropriate in that situation. Okay, so that is the adaptive immune response and how we are going to move into that. So let's switch to some PowerPoints. And go through that a little bit. I know this is something you've had in your other classes, so there's a few things we'll kind of breeze through. Overall, adaptive immunity is the body's ability to recognize and defend itself against a particular invader and maybe their products that they may be doing, toxins or something that they're invading us with. So that's the adaptive immunity. Again, it isn't specific. It has to see the invader and know that it's bad, understand that this is a bad target before it will respond. All right, so what do we want in our big guns? What do we want out of our adaptive immunity? We want it to be specific. We only want to target something that is actually bad and we're sure it's bad. We want to be able to turn it on when we need it. We want it to be inducible. So inducibility is a feature of adaptive immunity. Once we have decided that it's a bad guy and we've turned it on, we want to be able to make an army to defend ourselves. So that's that clonality. We want to be able to have one cell that is designed to attack, and that one cell is able to clone itself into an army to attack us, to defend us all over the body. We definitely do not want these guns pointed to ourselves. We do not want this big, huge defense attacking our own body cells. So we need it to be unresponsive to self. Or unresponsive to things that are not a threat. That would be something too. And then we also want to be able to, if we ever get confronted by that particular bad guy, by that particular pathogen again, we want it to know that that's a bad guy, a pathogen, and we want it to be able to respond very quickly. So that's going to happen. That's going to acquire some memory. We're going to have to remember what our immune system has learned. Okay, the next couple of slides I'm going to have you go through and do a little quiz, and then we'll come back and hit some highlights. Okay, so some highlights from that. You went through, again, most of this you've learned in A&P and some other courses. We know that we're going to have two different types of big gun immune responses. One is cell-mediated, the other is humoral. Cell-mediated involves T cells, and these are going to target the pathogens that are already invaded our cells. So that's the T cell job. They protect us against pathogens that have already invaded our cells. So they are referred to as a cell-mediated immune response. Humoral immune response are going to protect us. These involve our B cells, which are going to produce antibodies. Our B cells protect us, are called a humoral immune response. They protect us from pathogens that have gotten inside the body. They're in our blood or in our tissues, but they're not inside the cells yet. Humor is an old name for blood bodily fluids, so that's why it's called the humoral immune response. Those are B cells in that. So because of that, cell-mediated immune response is intracellular, protect us against things within the cell, and the humoral immune response with our B cells and antibodies are going to be extracellular and protect us against things outside of the cell. What else do you need to know from that? This all involves the lymphatic system. Talked about the circulatory system. That's a good way to move drugs through our system. It goes all the way around. It also is a good way to move cells. We talked about inflammation and how that brings cells to those areas. The lymphatic system is a one-way system, and this is the whole job is to look for the pathogens and for the bad guys. Reviewing lymphoid organs, we know the bone marrow where the B cells mature, the thymus where the T cells mature, and then we have these secondary lymphoid organs, lymph nodes, spleen, tonsils, and MALT, where all of that is going on. And again, the whole purpose is to be constantly screening our body. This is defense for our foreign invaders. And they say that this can happen like every 24 hours. We get invaded within 24 hours, all of this stuff has occurred. So it's a pretty amazing response if you ask me. Okay, we're going to stop that video there. We're going to stop this video there and pick up the next one with antigens. So I'll see you at the next video.